Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making millions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/hidden. Protect yourself now at aura.com/hidden.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
I've been walking around my neighborhood, going for walks over the past week or two because it's been nicer, low 40s, upper 30s. In February, that's kind of a gift. But as I'm walking through the neighborhood, I'm seeing a lot of houses on the market, and they're asking for prices that seem a lot higher than they should be. What I've noticed, the common thread between all of them is the fact that they all have new roofs. A new roof can increase your property value by about 7%, and it also has a positive impact on your energy bills. Suburban Roofing and Siding is a family-owned company serving the Chicagoland area. We're talking Cook, Lake, McHenry, Kane, DuPage. You can trust their more than 40 years of collective experience. They warrant their workmanship for a lifetime as long as you own the home. Their premium shingles are backed with a full 20-year non-prorated transferable manufacturer warranty. Not to mention, it's a green product. Call 224-677-6149 or visit them at suburbanroofingandsiding.com. So I mentioned that the reader survey wraps up on the 15th. The day before that, of course, is Valentine's Day. If your significant other, your partner, your paramour, the person who you adore loves reading, can I recommend a book? How about 90 Days in the 90s by Andy Fry? It's a fiction book based right here in Chicago. The idea of 90 Days in the 90s is Darby, a woman who owns a record store in the city, gets to go back in time to Chicago during the 1990s and take in all that music scene stuff that we're still kind of nostalgic for. It's a really fun book, and it's very familiar. If you live through any of it, it'll seem awfully familiar to you. Like I said, a lovely Valentine's Day gift or a lovely gift for yourself. 90 Days in the 90s, you can just go to the website, 90daysinthe90s.com.
It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
For the second year in a row, vinyl records outsold CDs in the U.S. I'm at a point where I have a turntable. My son has a turntable. My 16-year-old daughter now has a turntable. The appeal, the draw of vinyl records is at the heart of the new documentary film Vinyl Nation, newish documentary film Vinyl Nation. Joining me to talk about the movie are directors/producers Kevin Smokler and Christopher Boone. Gentlemen, nice to meet you both.
Oh, hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, James.
Important question as we begin. Is this a record or is this a vinyl?
It's a record. It's a vinyl record.
It's a vinyl record. It's wax. It's a plata. It's a it's a lot of things. Like we try not to police such terms.
Licorice
like
pizza.
Yeah, licorice pizza, 33 LP.
But I don't think either of us
Black
refer
gold.
to it. Yeah, we don't refer to it as a vinyl.
Right.
No,
There's some young folk, I think, who do, but we don't. But hey, you know what? Whatever floats your boat. I don't care
Yeah.
what you
That's
call
it.
it.
The last time I pushed back on it, I got lots of old man
Yeah.
isms thrown at me, and
Yeah.
just need to go with the flow. But I'm just going to leave it at it's not vinyl store day, it's record store day. Just
Yeah,
gonna leave it
well,
there.
I'll
True
put it. I'll throw this in. The Grammys do not make it easy for us because
No.
they award Song of the Year and call it Record of the Year,
Yes,
which is confusing in about 3 different ways.
it is.
But we are often, given that we made this movie, we are often, I think too often for our comfort, asked to sort of mitigate disputes over whether the thing you just held up should be called vinyl or whether vinyls is a sin against humanity or anything like that. And we try and stay out of that. We figure if you're listening to them, then you can call it you can call it your Sister Mary for all we care.
Fair. So the movie Vinyl Nation, this is about the personal side of collecting. This isn't an academic discussion about the rise and fall and rise of buying records. And I realize when you sat down and decided to make this film, you could have taken it in any number of different directions. You could have picked any number of, you could have done a documentary strictly on Record Store Day or on the speculators market that has kind of boomed over the past couple of years, or how pressing plants are struggling to keep up. You went down the very personal track, and I think the movie is really wonderful. I finished the movie just kind of smiling. I just felt happy watching your film. Talk about your choice to kind of choose that direction.
So this is Kevin. Chris may remember this differently, but when we first started talking about this movie, we don't live in the same place. I live in California and Chris lives in New Mexico. The first couple of times, did we even get together in person at the beginning, or was it just on the phone? It was just on the phone. Okay. But we definitely had some conversations where it would okay, if you were going to see a documentary about vinyl records, what would make you give up after about 7 minutes? Like what would make you just say, oh my God, that was an insufferable waste of time. And why didn't I, take my family out for a meal or go play tiddlywinks or something like that instead? And Chris, help me out here, but I think the short list we came up with was no pointless arguments over whether records sound better than tapes or CDs or anything like that. I think we said no comic book guys from The Simpsons talking about talking about when records peaked, fell, and arguing that whatever records you're interested in, they're the wrong ones. Like none of that. And viewing this is the only one I can think of, and maybe Chris can add a few more. And the other one was viewing records as kind of like a technology rather than something with soul. Because we couldn't really see how a medium that had been given up for dead would come back with such force if people didn't really feel an emotional connection to it, rather than just a convenience or aesthetic connection to it. Also, we were pretty much positive that it couldn't have been the same people who were into records before, because the math just didn't work out. You can't have a boom if it's a 1-to-1 replacement of previous audience to present audience.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think what you're trying to say, Kim, is we tried not to walk in with a preset agenda. We may have had some thoughts and some ideas, and definitely we had some characters that we wanted to follow and different storylines that we wanted to uncover. But we actually do ask people if they think vinyl records sound better than whatever. But I think to your point, Kevin, we weren't coming in with the prescribed argument that, we believe vinyl sounds better, and that's why we're making this documentary. It's we're not interested in that at all. And also, when we first started talking about it, I mean, we were well over a decade into the resurgence of vinyl records, and there had been a number of magazine articles and columns and think pieces about, hey, did you hear vinyl records are back? And we're like, okay, so that's been covered. But we were a little more interested in like, how is it sticking around for this long, and what does it mean? And as you mentioned in your intro, like your teenagers have turntables. Like my teenage daughter has a turntable. Like we were kind of interested in that, especially this generation that they never even held a CD in their hands. They never had music in a physical format. Now all of a sudden they're buying records. We wanted to dig into that a little bit more. And Kevin always had the title Vinyl Nation when he pitched me the idea. And that title to me says this is a broad, diverse group of people who happen to have one thing in common. Wouldn't it be cool to uncover their diversity and all the different reasons that they come together around music in this physical format? So those are things that were attractive to us as we were trying to figure out how to make this film.
And the movie is available. I watched it on Prime, but it's available on Apple TV, Google Play, Vudu, Vimeo on demand. It's available for streaming right now. After people are done listening or watching this interview, they can jump on and find out what we've been talking about. You mentioned diversity. Music fandom as a more inclusive universe, we see that over and over again in this movie, the inclusivity. One of my favorite examples is the Chulita Vinyl Club. Talk a little bit about that, because my next question, just to spoil that, how did you source all these guests? Like, how did you zero in on who to talk to? But talk first about Chulita Vinyl Club.
The Chulita Vinyl Club, we had, I don't know if I had read an article about them or heard something about them on NPR. And then, strangely enough, after we had already reached out to them, Karen Kelleher, the president of Gold Rush Vinyl in Austin, a newer pressing plant in Austin, when we were speaking to her and setting up her interview, she in fact said, "Oh, you guys should talk to the Chulita Vinyl Club." I believe the Chulita Vinyl Club may have started in Austin. The founder is now based here in the Bay Area. But I don't exactly remember how we heard about them. The Chulita Vinyl Club is an all-female Latin American group of DJs who I would say is almost a sort of professional association for Latino women DJs, and they share records and skills and equipment and book gigs together and stuff like that. And the group has really created a space for a class of professional DJ a lane for professional DJs that didn't really exist. And since most of them are under the age of 30, and they had vinyl in the name of their group, like we thought that was kind of fascinating. We thought here's a group of DJs that is purposely identifying themselves with vinyl records. And so we wanted to know why this group of DJs who were obviously who are all under 30 and therefore too young to have an experience with vinyl when that was the only way to listen to music. Why make that your brand? Like why make that who you were? And so it was just fascinating. It was fascinating to talk to Claudia, their founder, and then she was the only one of the members we got to interview, but we found some good footage of media appearances they'd done in the past, and of course live footage of them actually doing the thing of them DJing. Right. So yeah, their segment in our movie is often mentioned as one of people's favorites.
Yeah, the other thing that's really cool, I think, about that collective is how they use DJing to connect to the music that their parents and grandparents listen to. Yes. And they really want to share that musical cultural history with audiences. And they go digging in flea markets and more out of the way places to find a lot of music that probably is only available on vinyl record, and bring that out again to their audiences. So it's a combination of teaching each other how to be DJs, as well as, again, spreading their love of music that they've grown up listening to. And again, that you may not associate with a typical under 30-year-old. Right. So that was just kind of a fascinating story. And Claudia was wonderful to get to talk to and meet, and just so happened to be in the Bay Area, which is where Kevin's from now. So it made it easier for us to have that interview as well.
Chris, does it make you uncomfortable that Kevin has such a lovely background? Like he's
No,
virtual
not at all.
virtual
I
shaming
love his
everyone
background.
else.
Yes, no, yeah. I'm happy to have a bland closet door and blue blank wall behind me, while Kevin has beautiful wallpaper made of old movie posters and lovely bookshelves. Yeah, I'm in my happy little space in the house. So no, he'll never show me up, and I'll never be embarrassed about it.
Chris and I, the first week of this movie was shot here in the Bay Area where I live. So Chris and I, in addition to being co-directors, were roommates for the first week.
Sure.
Thanks to Kevin's hospitality. Also, you do not want me to open these doors. That's a nightmare back there, and so that is why they are closed during podcast interviews that are filmed on camera.
So, were you fans? Were you collectors going into this, or was this just something you were naturally curious about and wanted to build a story around?
I'll start with that one. I only got into records probably during the resurgence. Like I am one of the people that is part of this resurgence, and that started, I think it was, I have to guess, I'm never exactly sure, I think it was like around 2014. I worked at a record store for a year out of college while I was also working in corporate America, because I was like, I hate corporate America, but working at a record store is fun. And this is the late 90s, and we didn't sell records at all. So that was, the height of the CD generation, pre-Napster. But I loved working in the record store and, meeting a bunch of different people and seeing what they were buying and they were into. But Kevin and I are both a little too young to really have caught the bug, when vinyl was in its heyday. Like I had some 45s down in the basement on my mom's old hi-fi with my older brothers. I had a Fisher-Price record player too. Had some Sesame Street records. Yes. But I never owned an album of my own that would be considered music, other than these 45s, and not very many of those. I was really the cassette generation and then the CD generation. So so I'm part of the resurgence, and it was my wife actually who decided, hey, I think it'd be cool to get a turntable, and that was her mistake on her part, because I was like, ooh, I can start buying records now. Slippery slope. Yeah, and I didn't realize how out of touch I'd become with music. I was listening a little bit on streaming, but I really wasn't keeping up with current music. I just kind of had to let it go after I had stopped buying CDs. It was strange. And so being able to actually buy and hold music in my hands again, reestablish that love of listening to music that you own. And I love albums more than, just individual songs. And so like having a record was kind of actually like the perfect format for me. So we have it in the living room. I put on a record when I make dinner. I pay more attention to flipping the record than I do to what's on the stovetop, I always say. So that's how I got into records. How about you, Kevin?
I was fortunate enough to get into records kind of as the resurgence was beginning. Like Chris said, we're both a little bit young to have been into records the first time. Records were definitively like the way my parents listened to music. And then I bought someone's turntable, mostly on a lark, because I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And it largely sat on my living room floor and until I called the guy back who sold it to me and said, I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do with this. And then he took me record shopping to the original Amoeba in Berkeley. And he happened to, I said to him, I don't really know what I need to buy records of. Most of what I'm interested in listening to, I already own in some other format. And he said, well, why don't you just let me give you some stuff I'm interested in? And his thing was 1970s Philadelphia soul music.
Okay.
Which I was totally unfamiliar with at that point. And so I let him do it. And this is shortly before the renaissance of records began. So records were still kind of a cheap way to listen to music. That we all know that's not true anymore. So I walked away with a dozen, Gamble and Huff and Philadelphia International Records kind of things, and some Staple Singers and stuff like that. Staple Singers are from your town, but and I just fell in love with it all over again. And I was like, the light bulb that went on for me is like buying records was like going to music community college forever, like like 15-20 bucks a course unit, this semester's Irish punk, next semester is African electronic, semester after that is pre-1960s classic rock, and whatever, on and on forever. And of course that was premised on records being cheap, and they're not cheap anymore. Records are more like going to an expensive private university for music. But I still, the idea that records are still the best way to not only seek new musical frontiers, but sort of establish a home in a new musical area for yourself, and declare this as something you're interested in investing time and money and emotion in yourself in. And I haven't, neither Chris nor I are opposed to streaming, or see it as the opposite of records. I think we both see it as like the lead in to records. It's the thing you do to decide if something is worth spending the money
Absolutely
to have on record. And fantastic that it exists, because like if there was no way to preview before buying for records, I don't think there would be any money left to have made Vinyl Nation. It would be Chris and I and our families, we hope, probably living in an SRO motel with our records.
Probably. And everything you're saying, I mean, this is what spoke to me about the movie. It's that experiential aspect of it all. And it's funny, you're talking about streaming versus listening to vinyl. I got a couple Bandcamp Day purchases in the mail today that I ordered last week. And I realized I haven't listened to either of those albums on streaming services since I ordered those records. I waited for them to arrive before I could have listened to them over and over for the past 6 days, but I waited for them to arrive in vinyl form. Now, on the other side of it, I'm that guy who will take the download codes from records. I think no one does this. I'll take the download codes and download the high quality wave version.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Save them for a rainy day. I don't know what that means, but I have a terabyte of that stuff just from downloading the codes from records. So let's talk about sourcing, because when you sat down and started mapping out what this movie would be and the stories you were going to tell in the overarching story, you had to figure out who to talk to and how to build that narrative. You explained how you sourced one guest, but how did you find everyone else?
Well, honestly, most of it started with Kevin's network. And during our research phase, we started to reach out to people within, mostly his network and few in mine, just to kind of kick the idea around and see what they thought about it. And then every phone call would always end with like, who else should we be talking to about this? Who else should we be talking to about this? And so that would, lead us down a couple of different roads. And every time we would talk to somebody on the phone, we would finish up and say, like, do we think they make a good character, in the film? And then Kevin and I also started to come up with kind of like album tracks, things that we wanted to cover within the project. We definitely wanted to include record stores, but if we're going to include record stores, there might be some obvious record stores like Amoeba, but it would be more interesting to us if we would look at record stores that are owned by women, or, just not who you may expect to own a record store. We definitely want to look at pressing plants, because that whole industry has changed with, the fall of records and then the resurgence. And so we want to kind of figure out like, who should we interview for that, and the different types of pressing plants. So some of it would be kind of cold calling. And then you mentioned, how do we map it out too, is we literally had a Google map, and we started dropping pins on that map, because if you're going to call it Vinyl Nation and we decide to stay focused on the US, we realized pretty quickly, like, we don't want to just talk to people in New York and LA, Nashville, and call it a day. Like, that's not really Vinyl Nation. So yes, we were going to go to those cities, and, Kevin's in the Bay Area, so it's going to make sense. We have a lot of contacts there. Austin's a great music town. But then after that, it was like, well, where else do we want to go to actually make this a more inclusive story? And so we'd look at our map and see if we were kind of covering the country the way we wanted to. There were some cities that were on our list that just for time and budget we weren't able to get to. We tried, but it just didn't work out. But all in all, I think we got a pretty representative, cross section of the country. Kevin, what am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, we had these different sort of headings that we wanted to group the people we interviewed for Vinyl Nation under, people who owned record stores, people who worked at record labels, musicians, fans. We had more of those headings because we saw we were mostly making a fans movie, not a movie about people who work professionally in the music industry. Right. So for fans, we had more groupings like parents and kids who liked records and people who are sort of not the obvious person you assume is the one who likes records, like someone who's 11 or someone someone like that. And from there, like I think the thing we both understood is we had some basic questions we wanted to ask everybody, but we also really just wanted to let everybody tell their own story. Mm-hmm. And making a documentary is less about how does someone pop on camera or something like that, because you're not asking them to be in a car chase or be in a sex scene or something like that. What you're asking of them is, are they going to say something interesting? So it actually works more like radio or podcasting does, mm-hmm. where you need someone who's a good talker.
For sure.
And so we had questions we asked of everybody, but fundamentally all of the questions were pretty open-ended, and we just hoped that whoever we spoke to would have enough to say and be excited enough about telling their own story for it to be the fibrous tissues of a good movie. And we sort of sussed that out on the phone. We talked to everybody on the phone before we went and filmed them for Vinyl Nation. And from that, I think Chris and I could pretty much tell, like, is this person just going to be conversational? Is this person just going to be fun to talk to? And if so, we figured we could kind of swing with them. I conducted the interviews, but Chris and our cinematographer Sherry were both there on set. And when I was done with my questions, more than once, either one of the two of them would say, "Hey, I'd also like to talk to you about X or Y," and then that would be part of the interview too.
It's like a court trial. I'd like to cross-examine.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we tried really hard. Like I don't think we talked to. I mean, maybe Ben Blackwell, but we didn't talk to that many people who were sort of used to being on camera. Yeah. And so it was really important to us that everybody just felt like we were having a conversation, and the camera and the equipment, the sound equipment and stuff just kind of disappeared. So we would do a thing where the first few questions we would ask people were just chit chat. The camera and sound would say they were ready to go. I, as the interviewer, would say I was ready to go. And then we just chit chat. I'd say, tell me about your favorite album. Tell me about the last album you bought. And that was mostly just a way to get the conversation going. Mm-hmm. Like we didn't get to the substantial part of the conversation until 4 or 5 questions.
Sure. You mentioned Ben Blackwell, one of the most quote-worthy, sound-biteable parts of this movie. Ben Blackwell from Third Man. Audiophiles are the worst. They are passionate about all the wrong things about vinyl records. I can't imagine how much shit he took. But I mean, that speaks to what we're talking about as fans. It's not about the grams or the depth of sound. It's just that connection to the music and the artist. That's at the root of all this.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I want you to jump in here if I'm mischaracterizing this, but like anyone who makes a movie is probably someone who has seen a lot of movies, and they're probably someone who knows when the experience of watching a movie is great and when it's infuriating. And the most sort of general way you can describe a movie that's infuriating is bad company. It's like, do I want to spend like 90 to 120 minutes with you? Bad movie? No, thank you. It's like I'd rather not. So I think that was the most important thing for us. Like thematically, we thought the accurate story of the comeback of vinyl records was one of inclusion and not exclusion. It was one about more people becoming interested in records. And also, like, Chris, I don't know what we would have done if we had found out that like everybody who was responsible for the comeback of records was a jerk. like I'm not sure what we would have done. Would we have had to make a movie about jerks? But thankfully we didn't. And I think for it to hold up to the very weighty title that was Vinyl Nation, I think we sort of knew our story was going to have to be fundamentally optimistic, fundamentally inclusive, and therefore good company.
Well, and to build on that, one of our editors, Jason Welling, after going through all of our raw footage and trying to pick out things that he thought were going to work well for the documentary, said pretty early in the post process, it's like, you guys set out to make a documentary about the resurgence of vinyl records, but I think what you have here is a story about human connection and what brings people together. And realizing that at that point and leaning into that kind of as a theme, as we would watch through the rough cuts and as we were winnowing it down, we wanted to make it feel a lot like, here are 45 of your newest friends that you just want to hang out with. You don't even need to be into vinyl records. But you still want to hang out with these people, and they're going to share their love and passion for vinyl records. And you're going to see connections amongst them, even though they've never met each other. And they may look totally different from one another and come from totally different parts of the country and totally different backgrounds. And yet some of them are going to tell almost the exact same stories. And it has to do with vinyl records. And that to me was really special. And we had a number of people ever since we've released it tell us like, yeah, I just really feel like I could hang out. I'd want to hang out with those people. And also as we were editing it, our editor's like, yeah, you could put all 45 of these people in a room and they would just be fast friends. Even if they have a lot of other differences, just because of records, they would just want to go off and talk about their favorite records and what they love about them and share them. And that was important to us in terms of what we ultimately wanted the feel of the documentary to be when you watched it. And to your point, Kevin, you want it to be good company. Like, you don't want to turn it off because you're curious when your favorite friend is going to come back around to say something like Ben Blackwell and throw audio files under the bus and admit to it at the same time.
Right. Oh yeah.
So, and that was great just to be able to have those conversations and for people to kind of break down those initial barriers and just kind of speak honestly. And that's not to say we don't have audio files amongst the characters in the film and amongst our fans as well. Like, but just recognizing that there's room for everybody at the table.
Thinking about what you said, and again, the movie is Vinyl Nation, talking to Christopher Boone and Kevin Smokler, who made this movie, talking about getting all these people in a room. It comes down to community. When you listen to stream music on your earbuds, it's a very solitary experience. This is a very welcoming way to listen and share an experience together. And I think that really is something that comes across through this film.
Yeah, I don't run into people when I'm on Spotify,
Exactly.
but I do bump into people if I go into the record store and I haven't met them before. It's definitely a personal experience, and there's something fun about that. I mean, I think that's also part of people can say what they want to say about Record Store Day, but Kevin and I talk about it as it's just a good excuse to go to a record store and bump into people that you haven't met before and just see all these people that are into something that you're into as well. And you don't need to necessarily go at the crack of dawn. There's always cool stuff going on. Yeah, we don't. Yeah. So there's always fun stuff happening. And that's a great day because there's just a ton of people there. But honestly, every day is a good excuse for a record store day. It's just a much more personal experience. Like we said earlier, though, we both use Spotify. We use it to discover music. And the irony for me is like my daughter, posts on her social media her Spotify end of the year, whatever it is, and they like to try to make it look really cool. And from that, I can figure out what record I should buy her for Christmas.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Without
absolutely.
asking her. I'm like, yes, but it's fun to figure out which ones actually exist as a vinyl record. So there's certainly ways to share things through social media and through streaming services, but certainly isn't the same. I'm also the beneficiary of many records that have randomly shown up on my front door thanks to the generosity of one Kevin Smokler.
Oh, you're too kind. I mean, I think it helps that we've spent an ungodly amount of time together, despite not living in the same place over the last, God, almost 5 years now, and so I think we're pretty much aware of the kinds of music that each one of us that speaks to each one of us, and where each one of us would like to grow more musically. I have a distinct memory. I think it was like our third night of filming, and we were in Los Angeles, and we were all out very late, and we were very tired. And we had a long drive back to drop everybody off. And Chris said, "Why don't you put some music on?" And I put some music on, and it was some sort of slow, dirgy kind of thing. And and it is really the only time Chris has ever reacted to me with a virulence and a negativity about this sort of thing. And he just turned to me and he goes, I think he said something on the lines of, "I will literally drive the car off the road from like exhaustion and slumber if you keep this up." he goes, "This is not going to work. We need something."
Yeah.
Like that. And so I fixed it. And like,
yeah, and Kevin, that's late night driving 101. Nothing down tempo.
No. I really should have known better. And but I think what we have experienced, and who knows, maybe it's just us, drinking our own Kool-Aid and ascribing to the attitude that was in our movie, or maybe it was an attitude we as people had all along. Chicken or the egg question there, but we just feel like records and music and what they represent is a way to find something in common with people that you don't have in common otherwise. And I'm saying something that everybody who has spent too much time in record stores knows. But you go into a record store and you pick something up, and you're deciding whether to buy it or whether you even know what it is. And you do that enough times, and someone you've never met before, of course, will say to you, "Oh, you have to get that. You have to buy that record." And once in a while they're wrong. Most of the time they're right. They're right more than happenstance with strangers would indicate. And what that means, to me, is that there's just magic in the air. There's just magic in the air when you're in a record store, and everybody wants to do right by not only themselves but everybody else in there, but music itself. Like it's like we've all just entered the oracle, at that point, and we all just want to show that we're faithful servants to this thing called music. And I mean that's by the way, that's a good record store. A good record store promotes that kind of humanistic behavior between people. Bad record store, fist fight's going to break out or something. But like, so yeah, I think I don't know. I hope that our movie captured that sort of positivity and kindness that records seem to engender in people.
Well, that was one of the first things I said when we started talking. Was I finished the movie and just felt happy, and coming off a couple of years where everything we see on the news, everything we doom scroll on our phones, it's just dire, and people are just crappy. When you read about them and you see these stories, here's an example of people who are just cool and kind, and they just all are into the same thing, and it's all wonderful. And I just felt, okay, the world's okay. It's not as horrible as I've been led to believe for the past couple of years. There are pockets of hope and inspiration, and that's what I got out of the movie.
That's great to hear. I mean, we actually finished this film in February 2020, and then a month later, the pandemic hits, and we're like, oh boy. So we had all kinds of plans on how we wanted to bring the movie out into the world, and that just went out the window. And before we had any sort of distribution in place or any leads on that, we didn't know if anything was going to happen with film festivals, if film festivals are going to happen whatsoever. Nobody knew what was going on with the pandemic, and all the record stores were closed. And Record Store Day happens most years, and now it does again in about mid-April, and that definitely wasn't going to happen. And that's when record stores typically go into the black every year. It's the biggest day of sales. And Kevin and I just were talking to each other saying, like, a lot of these record stores might go out of business. Like, and Kevin actually said, I'm worried our film is going to be like just out of time, out of place. It's going to be a historical document and it won't make sense. Like, what are we going to do about this? And so we just on a whim decided, well, why don't we just do a fundraiser for the record stores and do a one weekend only screening? And nobody had seen the film yet. And we connected with the Record Store Day National Organization and said, hey, do you think this is a good idea? And we said, we'll let them keep 100% of the proceeds. Like, we just want to help them out when they can't open their doors on a day that means the most to them. And Record Store Day said, yeah, absolutely. So they helped us get in touch with a bunch of record stores. So we had like 250 record stores sign up to sell tickets. They sold tickets digitally to their customer base.
46 states too. So
Almost the entire country. And collectively, all the record stores sold about $37,000 worth of tickets, and they got to each keep all the proceeds. But what was really cool was everybody got to watch the movie for one weekend when we were all stuck in our houses together. Separately, but we're able to watch together. And Kevin and I would jump on some record stores did like live tweet parties, and so we jump on that, and just having like literally thousands of people all at once being able to share the experience that they were missing on Record Store Day together was special at a very early time in the pandemic. And to your point, the movie is joyful, and it brought joy to people at a time when we were all pretty scared and we didn't know what was going on. And that was great. And so that was probably the coolest movie premiere I know I was ever involved in, and probably will ever be involved in. And I didn't get to be there with anybody except like my own family. But yeah, that was really special. And so I'm happy that we were able to do it. And thankfully, due to Kevin's diligence, our film has had a great tour of many cities, many film festivals. We've released this thing 6 ways to Sunday, and it's just been a great ride ever since that point in time. So, and then every once in a while we got these awesome interview requests from people like you. It's like, hey, do you want to talk about a documentary? Like, absolutely.
Yeah, my worry, guys, when I reached out to you was, am I too late? Like, are they done doing the press for this? Like, I just saw the movie. I feel like I'm late to the party, but I'm going to reach out anyway because
we have had an interview request since yours. Like, they just keep coming through. They keep getting tossed over the transom, and just like people love talking about records in our film, we're happy to talk to people about our film.
Yeah, when you finish a project you've been working on for 2 years, and you finish it a month before a worldwide pandemic begins, you disabuse yourself of the notion that any positivity or optimism or interest in your project is not worth your time. Like you're really glad that people are watching and care. And I'm not saying like you always want you make a movie, you want as many people to see it as you can. Chris and I joke sometimes, like, we're not sure we would have gotten better results if we had like premiered at Sundance or something. Like I don't know if we don't know if things would have turned out better had this been a more conventional release and had there been no giant pandemic standing right in the middle of it. But this is what it is. I can definitively say, like, very, very few first-time documentary filmmakers will have had the experience that we've had over the last 2 years releasing their first film. There's a couple of them, and we've had some really fun conversations with those people, and we happen to love their movies too. So we would totally recommend anybody see the Other Music documentary. Those guys are friends of ours, and then the people who did the documentary, The Booksellers, about the sort of state of rare book collecting, like those, we were comrades in arms with them too. And then, we've been really the beneficiaries of a lot of goodwill, particularly by the film festival community. We've had several film festivals say, who showed our movie virtually in 2020 when there was no such thing as film festivals in person, say in 2021, like why don't you guys come back? Like, why don't you guys? And that never happens. Like you never get two bites of the apple with a film festival. So
for sure.
So that's been great. And Chris and I have been fortunate enough to go to a few of these film festivals, and it's a little bit just like meeting people you served in the same battalion with, like, oh, your movie came out in April of 2020. Like, how did that go?
Yeah, that shared experience for sure.
Yeah, really special. And to the one, they all said the same thing. Like, I couldn't do it if people didn't continually show me and my crew and my movie the kind of goodwill they did. Like, I wouldn't have been able to keep going.
So this creative partnership, Christopher Boone, Kevin Smokler, this partnership is continuing. You're working on something new together?
We are. I'm less patient than Chris is, and when we were thick in the middle of doing Vinyl Nation, I would tease Chris and I would say, so regarding our next movie, and he would say, stop it, we have this one to tend to. And we just didn't know. We didn't know where this would end up, and we sort of made no promises to each other of working together beyond this. And I think we realized, Chris, you tell me if I'm characterizing this correctly, but I think we realized, like, A, we work really well together. And B, we, despite all of the obstacles, Vinyl Nation sort of got a reception that we didn't anticipate it was going to get. And got a ton of goodwill we didn't think it was going to get. And so it would be looking a gift horse in the mouth to not try and make something of that. So, Chris, I don't know when it was. Was it last May we met up in your hometown? And
yeah. You came out here, and we sat down for a week, and we just kind of spitballed several different ideas. And yeah, I definitely was the one who was like, let's get through one project from start to finish. And I do realize, like, from many different perspectives, it makes sense to have multiple things going. It's just, this was, like you were saying, the first time you and I had worked together. This was your first film, period.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it was like, and every stage is different from the previous one. So it's just a whole different set of obstacles. And we realized going through it from start to finish, where each of us had strengths and each of us had weaknesses, and we complement each other quite well. It's the other reason we tend to work well together, but that wasn't apparent until we kind of got through the whole thing. And so knowing that, it's like, okay, what could we tackle moving forward? And could we put together maybe a few ideas to try to move a couple of things forward and see, which one might catch fire. And if that one takes off, then let's kind of keep trying to get the other ones going too, maybe, a little bit, but let's, focus over there. So yes, we are working on a couple different ideas, but they're still early stages, but we're at that phone call stage where we've been reaching out to a bunch of people every day, kicking around these ideas, seeing what they think about them, asking them, some interesting questions, finding out from them who else we should be talking to. And we're getting closer on some, but every film is an uphill battle of time and money.
Sure.
So, even though I think we have some really good ideas, we gotta deal with the money part of it too.
Yeah.
And convince somebody that say, yes, this is a good idea. Why don't you join us on this journey? So Yeah, hopefully we'll have more news in the near future. But yeah, we're plugging away right now. And like Kevin said, we had a really good experience with Vinyl Nation. We've built goodwill with a number of different people. And so hopefully we'll be able to work with some of those same people again as we move forward on new projects.
Yeah, I think if Vinyl Nation was supposed to be a one-time thing, I think I would have gone to Albuquerque last May. Chris and I would have sat down with the legal pads for 8 to 10 hours at a time at the same diner, which we did like 3 days in a row. And it would have just been awkward and weird. And we would have been like, okay, I guess this isn't really like supposed to happen again. But I think, I don't know at what point it was during those 3 days, it was clear to us, but I think we were both like, okay, we both showed up with some different ideas, and it was like, oh, it's clear, like we're already talking about this, like this is supposed to happen. So
that's awesome. And unrelated or somewhat related, diner food is one of my favorite cuisines.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Give me a Monte Cristo or a patty melt, I'm good.
There is a diner in Chris's hometown that has been very good to us, and iterations of this movie and things we've done together, and projects we've spitballed together and stuff like that. So.
Yes, and you can sit at the Flying Star Cafe essentially all day, and nobody's going to kick you out. So
it's a beautiful thing.
That's helpful, and good Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So Vinyl Nation, it is streamable. I love it. If you're not a record collector, it doesn't matter. This is a story about people, and records just happen to be the red thread throughout these people's stories. I love, really nice job, and I'm glad that you're working on something new or spitballing what comes next, because I'll be excited to see what that is. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, James. Appreciate it.